Greetings everyone. Super Wednesdays here in the Holy Land, the Holy Apple, the Holy Hilltop, Tal Binyamin. Welcome. We are, this week's class will be titled Chaim Walder to Rabbi Efrem, eliminating Jewish rats from our midst. Once again, Chaim Walder to Rabbi Efrem of Boca Raton, Florida, eliminating the rats amongst the Jewish community. Okay, folks, this is also part 2 of Chaim Walder, Righteous, Wicked, the Real Bottom Line. Unfortunately, today in our times, there's so much evil out there, you don't know which battlefront to stand, which direction to point our spiritual ammunition to our mouths against these people. By the way, the reason I'm calling them rats is, amazingly, for those that are not familiar, a modern Orthodox rabbi in Boca Raton invited, a few weeks ago, January 11th, he invited a known missionary to come and speak inside the synagogue. And it's irrelevant, of course, that the person is not going to get up there and in a synagogue and start, missionizing people, but that's irrelevant. The fact that a person did such a thing, a religious person did such a thing. And amazingly, Boca Raton, it means the mouth of a rat. And that's exactly what we're dealing with here. Amazing that the Jewish community, we have our share of rats amongst us. And it's about time we stand up and do battle. So all those that protested to the Boca Raton synagogue against the against Rabbi Efrem, beautiful. That's what we have to be done. We have to uproot these Jewish rats from our midst. Okay, so please, for those that were not present last week, go back. You could listen to the first class. Right now, we're going on and moving forward. Unfortunately, in this, from here on in, we'll call Chaim Walder CW. I don't want to say his name. So, during the story of CW, many people interviewed, or many people that spoke, actually had a lot of mercy on the perpetrators, the predators, and not the victims. That is so disgusting. These people were victimized twice. Once by CW, and then by the public, or by leaders, or by certain rabbis. I hope we could say that these leaders and rabbis that came to the defense of CW are the minority. I wanted to give 4 amazing examples of this sickened, misplaced priority. A person that could come and he's so worried about, oh my God, embarrassing CW. Oh, speaking Lashon Hara, bad, evil tongue against CW. Or accusing those that came to testify against the perpetrator, the ones responsible for his suicide. What in the world is going on? Unfortunately, this is not a new phenomena. We will see 4 cases in the Talmud where during many times of history we've lost it. We've lost it. We've come, so to speak, to the defense of the evil, of the perpetrators. And we've been cruel to the victims. Misplaced priorities. So let's remember all of these cases and never fall into such a trap. Case number 1, it appears in Tractate Yoma 23a. Tell an amazing story. There were 2 priests, 2 Kohanim, that were running up the ramp of the altar in the temple. And one Kohen wanted to be the first in order to merit to do a certain commandment in the temple. So he pulls out a knife and he stabs, in order that he will be the first one up on the altar. He stabs a fellow priest in the heart. And now we have on the ramp of the altar, we have a Jew, a priest, who is bleeding to death with a knife stuck in his heart. And the father of this priest comes by, and the first thing that he says amazingly, is not, he doesn't turn towards his son. Son, how can I do? What can I help you? I love you. No! He tells, my son will be an atonement for you. Can you imagine? This guy just stabbed your son and you're worried about his atonement. My son will be an atonement for your transgression. That's what's on your mind? Your son is here. He was just stabbed. But it gets worse, the story. The father says, oh my God, I see my son is still alive. Right now, take the knife out of his heart, and this way it will remain pure, the knife, and it could be used in the daily sacrifices that are coming up. The Talmud ends this tragic saga by saying, at this time of history, what was more important to the Jewish people was the purity of utensils than the murder of Jews. Oh my God, be careful. We don't want to contaminate the utensils of the temple. To hell with this guy who's dying here on the altar. That's not important. This is an amazing concept. Disgusting, sickening. That is exactly what is happening here in the CW saga. People coming to his side. Amazingly, 22 people came. How many more are out there and testified before tremendous Talmidei Chachamim, Torah scholars? A man who turned down to come and to defend himself. Let's hear what if you have a different story here, let's hear what you have to say. He refused to come down to the court. This is exactly such behavior. A father, your son is dying. All he has to say, all he has on his mind is 2 things. That my son will be an atonement for your transgression. That's what he has to say to the murderer. And all he has on his mind is, oh my God, let's get that Let's get that knife out of his body so it will remain pure and we can continue service in the temple. Well, what about your son? What do you have to say about your son? Where are your feelings to your son? Your son has been murdered. Doesn't bother you? Not a word. Not a word. Misplaced. Second, in the Jerusalem Talmud, Tractate Sukkah, chapter 4, the second law, an amazing story. In the times of the temple, I'll summarize what happened. If Sukkot fell out on a Saturday, people would bring their 4 species, the Arbat Minim. They would bring them to the temple on Friday, as one cannot carry them 4 cubits. The authorities present at the temple explained to all those that came on Friday, placing their 4 species in a certain area of the temple to be used the next day on the Sabbath. They informed the populations, whoever came, they informed them over and over again. Tomorrow when you come, you're not going to be able to recognize your own lulav. There's so many people, there's thousands of people that are coming, and you know what they say, all of these 4 species pretty much look alike. Don't worry about it. Don't get nervous. Why? Because whichever of the 4 species that you grab onto, that you take, that will be yours. That will be considered yours. You happen to buy another set where you can't find it, it's fine, it's okay. Everyone understands that whatever they will not receive the same one that they bought, because there's thousands and thousands of these 4 species in a room in the temple. Okay, so no problem. It is yours 100%, and on the first day it is kosher to say a blessing over it. However, what happened? The rabbi saw that there was a danger of life. People, in order to run and get their 4 species, they didn't care if they ran over and stampeded other Jews, because I have to get to my 4 species. That's what's important. No. The safety of other Jews is what's important. But that's what wasn't happening. People were running, people were pushing people. I hate to say, I've been at some various events, which I will not say where. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to get out alive or not. And of course, misplaced priorities. It's much more important how we act. Are we pushing people to try to get on a bus, to try to get on the train, running over people, stampeding people? All for the 4 species. So that law was removed. No longer. In order to protect people, that was annulled. That type of action where people brought their 4 species on Friday and then they would come on Saturday so they wouldn't have to carry it. So the rabbis made a new enactment that was that everybody would, if Sukkot fell out on a Sabbath, they would do the commandment of blessing over the 4 species in their homes, everyone in their own home, because people were acting like animals in order to get their little lulavs and etrogs. So that's case number 2. Number 3, it appears in the tractate of Brachot, blessings, 22a. Amazing. A man wanted to have relations with a certain woman. There's a dispute among the sages. Was this woman single or was she a married woman? She excitedly replied. Okay, now you have here a man who wants to have relations with a woman, and what is her response? Listen to her response. How can you request such a thing? But listen to what her problem is. Do you have a ritual bathhouse nearby? What does that mean? See, the sages had enacted in order to discourage sexual exaggeration, they made a law that a person, after partaking in relations, they would have to go to a ritual bath. Now that, not always easy. That takes time. Sometimes it's freezing outside, and you have to go into a lake or something. So this calmed down the Jewish population from exaggerating and always having relations with their spouses. So when hearing this, so this woman, she's not worried about that you're about to ruin somebody's life here. Whether she was single or whether she was married is irrelevant. But a person, this perpetrator, this predator, he's about to ruin the life and the future of this woman. And what's on her mind? What's on her mind is, 1 second here, there's a problem. Is there a ritual bathhouse in the neighborhood? I mean, let's call up information to find out where the nearest one is. I mean, what is wrong with this woman? Where is her head? And this perpetrator, what happens to him? When he hears that there's no bathhouse, there's no ritual bathhouse in the area, he says, forget this, and he leaves. Can you imagine what is going on here? A person is willing, according to the opinion, that this was a married woman. A person is willing to transgress a biblical prohibition. Not only that, to destroy a person's family life. That doesn't bother anyone here. What bothers them here, the man or the woman, what bothers them is, God, is there a spiritual bathhouse in the neighborhood? Nuts. Crazy. Last but not least, we're told in the Jerusalem Talmud, Tractate Brachot, 3rd chapter, 4th law. There was a guard. His duty was to guard the vineyard. And he was about to have relations. He was about to have relations with a married woman. And before this took place, they both said, well, let's make sure that there's a spiritual bathhouse in this area. So they went around looking, is there a spiritual bathhouse in this area? And in the meantime, people are coming, more people are walking by, and they said, well, forget this. And both of them, ran away. But once again, this is amazing, and this is happening today. We're having mercy on the cruel. We have mercy on the perpetrators that have destroyed lives, that are likened to murderers. Not just because of the fact what they did, that the Torah, God looks at molestation and rape as murder, and a person who took his own life, which is also murder, a double whammy. But we've lost it. Rabbis, come to the defense of such an evil, such wicked people. Next, many families all over the world, in many languages, CW had dozens and dozens of books that he had published over the years. What is the law regarding CW's books? Okay, so let's look this one up. What is the law? Number one, we have, as we learned in the first class, according to the Talmud, Moed Katan, page 17, side A. When there are rumors circulating about sexual immodest behavior, we're not talking about even testimonies, just rumors that are circulating for at least a day and a half. The person does not have enemies or people that hate him in the community. Are we allowed to learn from such a person, from such an evil person? So, Maimonides, the Torah, the Code of Jewish Law, all in the Yehudah, chapter 246, Law 8, black and white, say it is forbidden. We are not allowed to learn from such a person. And it goes much further and deeper than this. Listen to this closely. Learning from such a rabbi. Once again, not witnesses, not testimonies, rumors, sexual abuse, sexually immodest behavior by a teacher of Torah, by a scholar. So, learning from such a rabbi, the Torah that is learned from such a person turns into the pill of death. This is brought down in Tractate Ta'anit, page 7, side A, both by the Marsha and Rabbeinu Gershom. Amazing. You're learning Torah from such a person? From such a lowlife? All the Torah that you learn, there is no benefit. Exactly the opposite. The Torah turns into the pill of death. Taking the red pill. Next, one might say perhaps this law that's brought down pertains only to learning in front, learning visually with a rabbi in a building, in a synagogue, when you're sitting side by side, when you're sitting in a room. Maybe that's forbidden. But books, it's a different league. Now, there is a minority of opinion that says books are a different story. Books are permitted, even if somebody went OTD, went off the derech, went off the path, the righteous path. There is a minority of opinion that you can continue to read the books that were written before the person went hayward. However, the majority of Jewish law opinion is get rid of those books. One may not learn from these books of a person that there are rumors circulating about immodest sexual behavior. And some of these scholars that said it is forbidden to learn from these books. Number one, we have the Shach in Yehudah, chapter 246, 8. The tremendous Jewish law commentator, the Shach, forbidden to read a person's books, such a person's books. Number two, a famous commentator on Maimonides, the Lechem Mishnah. He writes in the Laws of Talmud Torah, study of Torah, chapter 4, halacha 1. It is forbidden to read books by such evil people that are rapists, that are people that molested men or women. Aruch HaShulchan in Yehudah, Jewish law 246, law 22. From Bnei Brak in our days, Rabbi Shmuel Vazner, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, in his book Shevet HaLevi, volume 3, page 187. And last but not least, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein of New York, the leading Jewish law scholar of America. Listen to these words that Rabbi Feinstein says. He writes it in his Igrot Moshe, Yehudah, book number 2, page number 180. He brings down the Talmud that we mentioned in our first class last week in Moed Katan 17a. Rabbi Yehudah, who excommunicated a Torah giant, not a Torah scholar, a Torah giant, because there were rumors circulating that he was partaking in immodest behavior, sexual behavior. He was, we had 3 opinions. He had a relation with a married woman or married women, not clear. Or he would close himself off in a private domain with women, or he participated in various immodest sexual behavior, whichever one it might be. There were rumors circulating a day and a half. There were no enemies or people that hated such a person, and there was no denial that was going on. So Rabbi Yehudah put this Torah giant, who was responsible for the education of all the other Torah scholars. You can imagine how great this person was. He excommunicated him. And even though this person, that now that he's excommunicated, we have no teacher of the masses. What's going to be with the future? If there's no students of Torah, there is no future. But that didn't matter to Rabbi Yehudah. And this is what Rabbi Feinstein is saying, amazingly. Even though we will no longer have a teacher for the masses, this tremendous educator that we had, who's gone off, it doesn't matter. One is not allowed to learn from such a person or to read their books. Rabbi Yehudah realized that this Torah giant, if he would have been allowed to continue teaching Torah to students, to the masses, the Torah would have been okay. The Torah, he would not bring his sexual improper behavior. It would not come to into his classes. It would not come into the words of the Torah. His Torah would be taught 100% kosher. It did not matter. He could not teach Torah. We could not read their books until they repent. Amazing Rabbi Moshe Feinstein over there. A teacher responsible for the education of all the students of the community. A person that if he would have been allowed to continue, he would have continued 100% kosher Torah. But the fact that he has this blemish, the fact that he's participating in such conduct, immodest sexual behavior, that eliminates him from any position and eliminates reading their books. So, another important point. This is brought down by many of the commentators that I just mentioned. One might say, hey, listen, we know that in the Talmud, in Chagiga, Rabbi Meir takes pride in the fact that he learned from a person that went off the derech, off the path of Judaism, and became a scoffer, and we call him acher, a different person. He said, I would learn the good things from him, I would retain the good things and throw away all the garbage that my teacher had. So all these authorities that I mentioned in Jewish law, they all commentate the same thing. Rabbi Meir was in a different league. That is not us. We are not allowed to say we will learn the good things. We will keep the books that are good by CW. No. We are not on the level. Rabbi Meir was on an entire, he was a world above even the sages that existed. It is so difficult. We don't follow Rabbi Meir. If you notice, there's only one Jewish law that is we go according to Rabbi Meir. All other laws we do not go according to. And the same thing here. Stay away. Don't say I'm not going to be affected. I'll just take the good from this teacher and keep the bad. I'll protect myself. No. Everybody's in danger. We're not allowed to do that. That's not the Jewish law. What Rabbi Meir did is Rabbi Meir. And for us, the law is different. We are not allowed to read or learn from such people. Now, I must say, I'm very happy. God gave me this opportunity. We say every day, at least 3 times, we say in the prayers that we want to worship God with all our bechol me'odecha, which means also with all our money. Even if we have to lose money, we're happy for the sake of commandments. We go out and spend a lot of money on all of the holidays, and we go and buy books in order to learn Torah and come, and we buy different prayer artifacts. And every time we do this is a tremendous commandment, because we're spending our money on coming closer to God. So this was an opportunity. I have in my house about 15 books from the days of my kids of the CW, and we took them outside. The family, we took them outside. It's 15 books. And we were able to observe this commandment to love God even if you take a loss in money. And we took them and we put them in the paper recycling bin, and they're gone. They're gone from our house. Toss them out. Last question. Could this have been prevented? This is a big question. Could this have been prevented? Folks, there were people 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 6 years ago. There were people that knew about this. There were rabbis, great rabbis. There were leaders that knew what was going on. And perhaps they warned others, but they didn't stand up to the plate. They didn't stand up to the plate. How many people, how many lives could have been saved? We talked about in the first class the statistics. What happens when a person is molested, when a person is raped? It's something that sticks with you all of your life. Something that affects you. It's murder. You're living, but you're dead. So they might have warned people close to their circles, but they didn't stand up to the plate. They didn't warn the masses. And this brings us to a tremendous eye-opener. What kind of rabbis is God interested in? And folks, if we just listen to this part of the class, it's enough. The prophet Jeremiah, in chapter 5, verse 1, he goes around and he's looking. He's going around the streets of Jerusalem. And he's looking for people that are honest. People that seek justice. And he says, I could not find. So all of the commentators say, I don't get it. Jeremiah is walking the streets of Jerusalem. He can't find people that are faithful, people that strive for justice and truth. Of course there were. There were many people like that. However, that's what Jeremiah was not looking for, those people who kept their justice to themselves, who were quiet, who didn't step up to the plate. He was looking for leaders, for rabbis, for laymen that were willing to stand up in public and call out evildoers. That he could not find. There were many righteous people, but they were righteous in their own circles. They were righteous when the mic, off the record they were, but not when it came in a mic before their mouths. They closed their mouths. That's an amazing thing. This is brought down by the famous commentator, Rabbi David Kimchi, the Radak. That's what he says. There were a lot of religious people in Jerusalem, but these people could not save the temple. God was looking for other leaders, other types of people that were not frightened to come out in public and call a spade and call out the evildoers and publicize them and shame them. As we learn, that is the halakha, that is the law of such people. This too can be found when Abraham, in the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, when he goes out and he's asking God, listen, if I'm able to find 50 righteous people, will you destroy? What type of righteous people? So we have an amazing, the Sforno and the Ibn Ezra. They come in Genesis and they said, you know what type of people that Abraham was looking for to save the city of Sodom and Gomorrah? He was looking for people that were not frightened, people that were willing to rebuke the evildoers in public. That's who he was looking for. Only those types of people can save the temple. Only those types of people can save a community, a city. Those types. People knew what was going on in the last 20 years. And only now, brave rabbis came forward. Brave women, children, men, boys came forward to call out this piece of garbage. So that is a big wake-up call for me. That is a big wake-up call for all of us. Are we willing to go public? Call a spade a spade. Are we willing to be those whistleblowers? To stop these evil predators, perpetrators? I pray for myself, I pray for all of us, for all of the Jewish people, or for all mankind, that we should be successful in this mission of eradicating the rats, not only from Jewish life, but from life. Can't let the bad guys win. Till next week.